Hi again. It's me. Like I said, I'm doing this all in one take, just breaking it up into segments. Well, also because like I said before, I'm at peace right now, and the house is empty. I don't have anybody coming in and interrupting me every 5 seconds. I even threw the cats out. Well, all but two of them. But the troublemakers are outside. Yeah. Um, Last time I was speaking about the death of my father, how that affected me, and how it would affect me for years and years and years, um, and further poison the relationship between my brother and I. Not my eldest, my full brother, not my half brother. Anyway, what ended my college aspirations was that I met my husband. That fated meeting. And I started hanging out with bad people again. My relationship with my friend had just nearly disappeared. Her boyfriend was a nightmare, and she married the guy. He was he was a drug addict. He was mentally abusive. I don't know if there's any physical abuse, but I know that he was just emotionally and mentally abusive to her. Very manipulative. He was a narcissist. Again, I'm not going to say names. But that damaged our relationship to the point where we just, I'm just like, I'm just done. I can't do it anymore. I just can't do it anymore. And then I had met my husband, so that ended it completely. I just, I tried to hang out, and it's just like, I can't. Your husband isn't nice to me. He doesn't like me. He gets petty and jealous with me. So I'm like, no, I'm done. I cannot take this stress anymore. I was already dealing with so much. And, I'd met my husband. I started getting back into drugs. I picked up drinking again in college, of course, because doesn't anybody? That was a joy. I was going down that bad path again. I'd given up on Christianity. I still prayed. I still hoped. I still believed. But I didn't go to church anymore. Everything fell away. Pieces of me were just falling everywhere. Just breaking apart. It was difficult. But eventually, because I met my husband, I left college. The bills were piling up. I had finally managed, I got a small house next door to my mother. Worst idea ever. But she had given me the money. And the only, what I found out? I found out the only reason why she gave me the money, and the only reason why my brother said that he didn't go and scoop the house out for himself was because he had planned to move my dad in with me and make his full-time caregiver. That's why. That's why, they were going to be nice to me and help me with this house. And I was like, are you serious? So you gave me the money to buy this house for back taxes because you wanted me here to take care of my father. You wanted to dump him on me and make me solely responsible for him. You didn't want to help me pay bills in this house or anything. You just wanted me to be his full-time caregiver and what? Live on air? Because nobody offered to help, nobody offered to pay money or help, and they were going to help with the care. It was just, oh, now I can get rid of Dad and give him to you. Okay. And then he was going on about, later on about, yeah, we were going to get that house, and you took that house, and I'm just like, what? I mean, can you imagine being dumped on like that? It just added to my fuel, the fuel to my anger. My anger just went up and up and up and up. And in the meantime, my mother and I had finally, permanently parted ways. It ended up with me in jail and her blaming me for everything. Because she went in there when I was away at school. I came home, and this is another reason why I never graduated. I never decided to go back to school then. I came home one weekend, and at the time I had been working on and off at Kmart. And, you know, but I wasn't getting any hours anyway. But I'd come home on the weekend and I couldn't get in the house again. And I'm like, what the hell? And I'm looking through there, and the house, you know, it looked like she had drug a bunch of shit around or broken shit. And I'm banging on there, like, can you let me in? And she's in her full-blown drunk. And my clothes are in there, you know? I don't have any clothes to wear because I brought all my clothes home from college. You know, it was just a mess. So I broke a window to get in. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I live here. I get mail here. This is my home. You know, I broke the glass to get in, and she was yelling at me and screaming at me. And of course, you know, I broke the window, but on the porch. It wasn't like a main window. It was just an outside window on a porch. And because I was pissed off. My God. And I went in there. We started yelling at each other. And she picked up a can of green beans and threw it at my head, and it hit. And oh my God, it hurt. And then she rushed at me. And I slapped the ever-living crap out of her. I slapped her so hard that, I mean, she was drunk anyway and staggering, that she staggered back and fell. You know? And I'm like, I fucking had it. Just let me get my fucking clothes and go. So I'm going through the house, mad as hell. My head hurts. I'm kind of dizzy from, you know, getting bonked in the head with a can of green beans. And she calls the cops on me. Because I walk into my room and she has trashed it out. She has ripped off the shelving on my walls. She has smashed everything. There's glass and all my stuff, all the stuff I had in boxes, because, you know, I packed up my stuff because, you know, when I got done with college, I didn't want all this crap everywhere. But she had taken them and tossed them everywhere. She went full-blown psychopath on me, and my room was in a shambles. And I'm standing there in the middle of the room, and I just break down crying. And then all of a sudden, the cops are there. And I'm looking up, and I'm like, what the fuck? And they're looking around like, did you do this? And I'm like, why would I trash out my own room? I did not trash out my room. My mother trashed out my room. She locked me out of the house. Do you live here? Yes, I live here. This is my mom's house. I live here. I go away to college during the week, but on the weekends I come back to do laundry and work. I'm like, well, did you hit her? And of course, I said, well, yeah, I hit her. She smacked me in the head with a can of green beans. And you know, what the most absurd thing to say? Oh, she beat me in the head with some beans. You know, the absurdity. But I got arrested. And they didn't arrest her. They did not arrest her. She's sloppy, drunk, yelling, belligerent, snot coming down her. She's pissed herself. You know, there's this big stain there. And she's just deplorable. She stinks. She's drunk. And I go to jail. In what world does that make any sense? And they're like, we're sorry, but you have to come with us. I'm like, but the beans, you know? So they take me to jail. To jail, you know? I'm like, is this victim blaming? You know, I'm not the one who did all this. But because I had broken the window to get in, like, well, technically, if she locks you out of her house, it is her house. And I'm like, you're kidding me. They dropped the charges of breaking and entering, which is insane still to me. And they went ahead and instead of prosecuting me, the judge, when I was standing there, I was so furious. I was glaring at her. And she's like, how do you plead? And I'm like, not guilty. You know? And she's reading the report and she goes, you know, I'm not going to prosecute you. The only thing I'm going to order you to do is get counseling. We'll work on this, you know. We'll work on this later at your sentencing. But for now, I'm going to let you go. You're dismissed. And we'll work on it later. So that's what they did. They let me go. My mom is like, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. Yes, you did. She's playing that, oh, but you came home and oh, I'm so mad. It's all your fault. It's the narcissist thing. It's the victim blaming. Just like she did my entire life. And I was over it. I was so over it. I took all my stuff. My then boyfriend, because she had been interrupting our relationship, calling him up and harassing him. And that's what she would do. My mother would call people up on the phone. Because back then, okay, you didn't have cell phones. You had a landline, okay? For anybody that knows what a landline is, for any younger people, it's that little thing, that crazy thing you see in old movies where they pick it up, put it to their ear, and they dial. You got lucky if you had push buttons. But, we had, my family, we didn't get a push button one until, maybe my senior year. But until then, it was, and you watched it just dial. You had to, and if you got it wrong, you had to start over. God forbid you accidentally misdial. But anyway, she would harass people on that. She was a nightmare. She called people on the phone all the time, yelled at them, harassed them, called them names. And back then you couldn't just block somebody. It wasn't until later that they had that, I think it's star 69 back then or something, star 67, something like that. But yeah. She kept saying, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for you to go to jail. I'm going to have them drop the charges. And I'm like, I'm done with you. That was the final straw. My hate couldn't have been any deeper. And this whole time, even as a child, all I wanted was a normal mother. All I wanted was to get to know my mother. All I wanted was to play with my mom. I remember going to her, trying to invite her to, you want to play with me? No. I mean, when all that stopped, though, when, I found out how much she hated me. You'll have to watch a previous video if you want to know why she hated me. Or how I found out she hated me. But yeah. That was the last straw, and I took, my brothers came over there and packed up all my things. Because I had assaulted my mother. And then to make matters worse, my husband, or my boyfriend at the time, went out there and picked a fight with my brothers. Of all the things, he took a broom handle. I'm like, oh my God. He's going to wrap you up like a pretzel. Because my brother was, he's huge. My husband was this tall, lean, kind of skinny guy. He had muscles, yeah, but he was very lean. But he was wiry, and he was fierce too. I knew that it was just going to be a bloodbath. I just knew it was going to be a bloodbath. And, we had finally gotten into our house. I'd finally moved in. They, because they just tossed my stuff. They broke all my CDs, and my CD player was broken. Everything was broken. My mother trashed out my room, and they didn't give a shit either. They just threw my shit together. Threw it together, tossed it together, and tossed it over there. It was a mess. That was such a betrayal to me. It's like, God, you guys, you know what she's like. You know that she lies. You know that she just pits us against each other. And yet, here you are, taking her side and treating me like I'm dirt. That was the fracture. That was the final fracturing. Nothing was ever repaired from then. Not my relationships with my siblings, not with my mother, nothing. Not with my father. I had been totally set adrift. I had no family anymore. I just didn't have a family anymore. It was just me and my boyfriend. And that was a nightmare too. I went from one narcissist to another. Every time we had a fight, it was my problem. It was my fault. Everything. But yeah, that was the breaking point. And when I met him, he was a drug addict, an alcoholic. Yeah, yay! Right into that fire. You get nice and toasty. But that was such another defining moment in my life. Those are what we call tower moments. Moments where something in you breaks, something vital. It was another chunk that fell away, another piece of my soul being ripped apart, thrown about like confetti. Except for it wasn't very pretty. It was awful. It was truly, truly awful. She had meddled in my life. And you would think that would be the end of it. But living next door, and then she found out my phone number, and she started calling my phone number, harassing me then, even after, and then she would spy upon me because, she was right next door, so she'd peek out her window. She wouldn't come outside because, again, in the previous video, I'd said that she had become agoraphobic. She just wouldn't leave her house. She got to the point where she wouldn't even go to the doctor if she didn't have to. If she didn't have to, she wasn't dying, or because she had to go to her mental health appointments to get her Valium. Okay, she had to get her drugs. And, she had to have beer, but mostly she was getting my siblings to buy her beer. I refused. I stopped. I'm like, I'm not buying you jack shit. I don't care if you're going to tell me that you're going to cut your head off if you don't get another beer. I don't care. I just don't care. I'm not doing it. I am not going to contribute to that. I was not going to be an enabler any longer. Because now I had my husband. I started smoking pot again. I'd quit doing that, drinking, smoking pot. Stayed away from the meth. I did that for a little bit, but that was just like, I cannot handle this. My heart would race so fast, I thought I was going to die. So, yeah, we weren't doing that. But that's a whole nother journey that I'll talk about in the next video. But that's where we're at. The breaking away from my family, from everything. Completely cutting that cord. Another tower moment. I had a lot of those. Anyway, joy, peace, and love to you. And I will continue this in the next video. See ya. Oop, oop, there it is.